In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
a place at the table where we're set to check much more than the table.
It's good to be back at the table. My name is Yinka Obebe. Should I say welcome to myself? Now, if I told you that the local government were to save Nigeria, what would you say?
I'd say Nigeria needs all the help it can get, Yinka. I'm also looking at matters from a local perspective, even on the home front. I'm asking, who is to be blamed for bullying?
Similarly, I am keeping things close to home and looking at decentralization as regards state police, saying it's part of the urgent reforms that are needed.
And still on the home front, I'm asking questions and saying, what is to be done about our record maternal mortality rates and persistent blackouts?
My advocacy also stems from matters arising from our surrounding environment. It has to do with attitudes to disability, and I'm saying the stigma must stop.
Certainly, the message is one of change, starting from where we are. I'll set things in motion. I believe that many of us aspire to positions beyond the truly impactful roles that can propel Nigeria forward. Too much talent and experience are squandered on analysis and pursuing the few highest profile positions in politics and governance. The desire to become governor or president is widespread. Yet there are 37 of such positions available. However, there are 774 opportunities to serve in local government, where the impact is most immediate and tangible for the people. Unfortunately, many individuals believe they are overqualified for local government leadership roles. Just imagine the potential if some of our brightest young minds were to run local councils, or if retired CEOs and top-level executives were to bring their entrepreneurial and corporate experience to local government. Local government is where infrastructure like roads, drainage systems, and basic amenities are managed. It's where communities thrive and when leadership can have a direct impact on people's lives. I advocate for this shift because the central government requires clearer thinking and execution at the grassroots level, where it truly matters to the populace. While the conversation often revolves around state government empowering local governments, the key lies in ushering a different caliber of individuals to these roles. With top talent saturating local government leadership, our overall quality of governance will improve, allowing higher levels of government to focus on more pressing issues. This approach would lead to states concentrating on economic development, while leadership emerges from the grassroots, supported by tried and trusted individuals. Ultimately, this shift would elevate the standard of leadership and governance, benefiting the nation as a whole. What do you say?
I think I'll go first, right? And say, yes, I agree with you in terms of there needs to be humility in service and people should not just aspire for those big positions. But at the same time also, there's no autonomy at the local government. And then so you go in there, you really can't even do the things you're supposed to do because there's someone who is like the boss that decides what happens. So until we are able to get to that place where we work on the fact that we have local government autonomy, and then it will encourage more people to go in there and do the needful. Otherwise, we'll just keep running around. Because everybody wants to protect his or her own brand and their own integrity. So if you get into a place, you're the chairman, but or the chairwoman, but you're really not, because there's someone who is controlling everything.
I agree with Aisha that the lack of autonomy makes people not want to look at that position. But there's also that aspect of thinking, oh, it's a local government, just as what you are saying. And for us to even get that autonomy, Aisha, I think if the right people make that sacrifice that, okay, we'll be the first persons to go there as a professor, as a doctor, as a established business person, you know, those caliber of persons can hold the governors more accountable. I know it's a constitutional issue, but they can push, you know, for the right thing to be done for the local governments to get autonomy. So yeah, I agree that because of the autonomy, people are not going. But if the right people go, we can now fight even better.
Anyone else?
Yeah, for me, I mean, this is a fantastic advocacy. Words were jumping at me as you were making it. For instance, the phrase overqualified for LGA roles. Yes, indeed, some of us think that at your level of chief executive officer of a conglomerate or a multinational, or even a large organization, you might be overqualified to run at the local level. Why? Again, because at the local level, it could be that politics is a little muddy at that level. I mean, this is where a woman was killed in Kogi State. Aisha, you remember?
Yeah.
And so, again, at the local level, it looks like, I hear you well when you said communities thrive at that level. So it's change you're preaching, and it's going to probably take a long time for some of us to think, you mean we can do this? Because it looks like it's been parceled out to some of these champions at the local level, you know, there's a profile of people who run at the local level, and you just don't want a medal with them. We just want to go to the House of Rep where, you know, you look a certain way, you know. So it will take time. I hope and wish that people like me and all of us here will heed your advice.
We have to sometimes go back to look forward. I mean, you mentioned in your advocacy that we need a certain caliber of people, and I'm pretty sure, you know, we were talking about that, you know, a certain minimum level of quality of leadership at that grassroots level will then cascade up, basically. That's what you're advocating. But we have to understand, how did the local government system itself, you know, evolve? Yeah. And if you look at the history, it's pre-colonial, for instance, and it started from the days of the empires, where, you know, kings established kingdoms, and they had, you know, appointed people at certain level to just make sure that they get their tributes and set it up. And then by the time we had the colonial system, we had the indirect rules and what we call the district officers at that time. And the essence really was that even though there were leaders at the local level, they were never elected. They were always appointed to serve the master. And that system, even though today we're supposed to have a local government that has elections and, you know, electoral process, it's always been that the local government is subservient to the state. Yes. And they've never answered, you know, so until we actually, you know, develop democracy, real democracy at that grassroots level, like what we have in the UK, for instance, where you have the council, the county councils that are elected at the grassroots level. The county itself organizes its own election. It's not done at any higher level. And then the councillors elect the head of the council. And so until we get to that level, I don't think that we will have, you know, be able to get the level of credible people that we need.
So I think it goes back to the way we approach the problem in Nigeria in the first place. What I'm saying is that we need to go out there and contest to be chairmen and council members of local government. Perhaps what we're saying is that charity should begin at home.
Who is to be blamed for bullying? The child, the parents, the school, or the society? Did you see the trending video of the schoolgirl slapped repeatedly by her schoolmates while others watched. There was no one there to step in and put a stop to the torture. What would make a child become a bully? What would make the victim so helpless? What makes the spectators at ease with such acts and not a single person speaking up? How did a school become a heaven for bullies that they can do such with so much brazen impunity? These are the questions racing through my mind. As for the bullies, is it that they are inherently wicked and just want to hurt others? Or is it that they were bullied and now they have become bullies? Or were they enabled at home to believe that they can take their anger and frustrations out on others? Or were they brought up in homes where domestic violence is the norm and they see lashing out at others and physically assaulting them as the only way of venting? What can lead to the extreme behavior that was seen in the video by the young teenage girl? As for the victims, what allows them to take such assault? Is it fear, helplessness, isolation, or lack of support system? Do they not have school authorities or even listening parents they can talk to? Is such treatment part of what they are used to at home and have resigned themselves to it? As for the parents, how do they miss the signs of their children being bullies or being bullied? Is it even something that can be detected? Have they been good examples? Are they also bullies? Do they bully their domestic staff or people around them? Finally, the schools. Do they give enabling environment for bullying? Are there situations where the status of parents confers immunity on the students? Is that what enables those students? Don't these schools have anti-bullying policies? I don't have answers, honestly. I just have a bunch of questions, and I hope my co-hosts can help me answer them.
I was a victim of bullying when I was in school. It started from primary school into secondary school. And I've spoken publicly about it, so it's not like something I'm just saying right now. When I was young, I was very small. And so I got picked on a lot while in primary and secondary school. And so I think one of the things that we must first establish is that this is not new.
Yes.
All right.
True.
When we were, there's a lot of talk about bullying right now. Everybody's talking about it. But during our own time, it wasn't even called bullying. It was take your punishment. It was discipline. It was normal. And those, especially those who went to federal government colleges, can attest to what I'm saying, that it was normal for seniors to torture juniors. All right? And when those juniors become seniors, they do the same thing to the juniors. So it was a system. It was not normal. It was cultural in a way. And I tend to believe that, the source of it is what people see in society. So the bullying behavior is a reflection of what these children see in the environment. It can start in a home, maybe from domestic violence, the father abusing the mother. It could start from what they see with what politicians do, but it's a reflection of what society does, and it's about power and influence. So if I feel that I'm bigger than you, you're smaller than me, I want to exert that power. And at that level of school children, you don't have police, you don't have whatever, the only thing they can do is to bully that person. And they never do it alone. They always do it in a crowd. Today, children of today are much better because the laws are there. There's a VAP Act, there's a lot of all these things that protect. Awareness. There's a lot of awareness. We were not that lucky during our own time. Even if you go home with your bullying stories, your father or mother will not believe you or they'll beat you to it. And I think that, there's a lot to be said, but let me allow the others to chip in.
Okay. Well, for me, I think it was a very distressful video to watch. I still watched this morning. I watched last night. I kept watching because I saw a victim who was extraordinarily patient and calm. I don't think I'll be that calm. I was a gentle student back then, but I couldn't have been that calm in the face of such provocation. You saw wickedness, I saw evil. It's just evil to keep, you know, Yinka, you talked about power and influence. Yeah. It was some predator preying on this girl. And I thought, let me read what I wrote as you were making your advocacy. Yes, children mirror what they see at home. And I think that those two girls particularly need mental and psychological evaluation. They're not normal. That is not normal. Yeah. To slap and slap and slap. No remorse,
and to also
no
keep taking the
feeling, you know. And then the one taking the slap as well, there's something wrong with that girl.
She's resigned to,
you know, which means they may have been doing that before this particular recorded one. As for the parents, you asked, how do they miss the signs of their children being bullies or being bullied? Perhaps is the kind of life we live now. We live in the morning, we come back late at night, we go 4 a.m., 5 a.m., we're out again, and these children are most times in the hands of caregivers. So I think the bond and that critical conversation that parents need to have with the children over and over again, especially teenagers, because we're not talking about little girls here or little boys. We're talking of teenagers. Look at that boy lounging at the corner, taking everything in like, yes, you just took that out of my mouth. Those are the enablers, like, it is right to do this, show her. And for that boy, there's an adult enabler at home. There's an adult enabler around him. Finally, you asked these many questions and you ask for answers. I think there should be, whether undercover or not, there should be the bully force in schools. Let there be the bully force peopled by the students themselves. I mean, one of them did that video.
Sure.
Yeah. I think moving forward, we need such pupils or such students within the school system that can aid teachers.
Are you sure the person doing the video is not part of the
enablers?
I mean, I don't know, but I'm just you know, putting it forward that let there be a bully force within in schools. That would be.
What do you think?
For me, bullying in school, the buck stops with the school. They are to be blamed because not all parents are necessarily good at parenting. You have millions of people with different lifestyles, but we send our children to school to be educated and trained to certain sets, standards, and criteria. And the school is to enforce that, okay? Now, what Yinka said, I totally agree. If the school has a zero tolerance culture for bullying is not going to thrive, okay? Now, have you seen the treatment that even the accused girl is getting? She was slapped on video too.
Yes,
did you see? So you see, it just tells you the society and the cultural thing you are talking about. I think we have a lot to do, but for this case, the school has to take that responsibility because we agree we don't know how to educate our children and train them 100%, and we give that portion to them for discipline and, you know, education. So I think that's what I will have to.
First of all, like Yinka rightly said, there's nothing new about what happened in that video. I went to an FGC boarding house. There's nothing new. When your seniors are not bullying you, even your mates are bullying you. There was one of my mates that tried to bully me, and we set up a fight the following day, and we fought.
Oh, you set up a fight?
Yes, we planned the fight, we went to, we fought. And my own crew and his own crew came, and another fight erupted from there.
Outside is called Rabarini.
It was, exactly, and this was even in Mina. So all of this, it got dirty, it got terrible, you know. And my point is that in life, we get bullied. Every day we get bullied, every corner. You're either being bullied by who you're selling to, who is buying from you, the policeman, the this. It's a total breakdown in society, totally. And it's not a Nigerian thing. But you see, the problem really that I think we should look at is that now that that video is out there, what is the takeaway from it? What are we going to do about it?
From what we saw in that video is the fact that with the school, and I think there are other videos where some of the students were speaking, it's it has been sort of like normalized. So that's why they can do it so openly. Yes, there are a lot of anti-bullying policies. There are even phone calls, like in other countries, where you can make phone calls if you're being bullied and all of that. But rounding up, let me just quickly share the experience we had as a family with bullying. My junior sister was being bullied by someone in her class, and what my dad did say to her, he gave her a cane and told her to go in the morning, go straight to the boy and just beat him up. And the day she did that, that was it. And you know one thing that our father brought us up with is the father, if you want peace, you must be prepared for war.
Stand up to
Asking questions is a necessary part of seeking to address the problem. Certainly, silence is not and will never be an option.
This series began with an advocacy decrying the high level of insecurity, especially in the hinterlands, how these conflicts are largely undocumented and reforms required to ensure peace. Decentralization of resource control to ensure development of all states has been discussed. Today we will discuss another reform required, which is state policing. And finally, in the series, we'll discuss local government autonomy, which Yinka Obebe already started with today. The police in Nigeria currently are under the control of the federal government. Some arrangements for collaboration with states exist. However, these arrangements are inadequate, as final decisions, especially on key security matters, are taken in Abuja. This hasn't worked well, with some cases of blame game between the state governors and the police. Some arguments against state police have some merit, and there will be teething problems, of course. However, I would rather try something new that can actually work than insist on a system that has clearly failed. No one is calling for the abolishment of the federal police. They will only be having their efforts complemented by state and community police, which will allow more efficiency, as they need not spread themselves too thin, but focus on hotspots. Federal and state crimes can be delineated. The federal police will definitely have more powers than the state police. The armed forces will also remain a preserve of the federal government for those who are talking about secession. It appears that some are more scared of the concept of state police than of terrorists and bandits. This is indicative of a total lack of confidence in the states, and if this is the case, then of what use are the states? The states have to take responsibility, and citizens will have to hold them accountable. This will build the needed trust in state institutions. No security, no development. It's simple. Take tourism. It's impossible to promote when insecurity prevails. Agriculture, which is one of the sectors almost every state can tap into, is under threat. It's said that you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. A dead horse has to be changed. You cannot flog it, feed it better, or appeal to it for improved performance. It's dead. Change is imperative.
For
Floor
me,
is open.
I will always support state policing, honestly, because we already have vigilante already. And in my own local government, Isako West local government, whenever there's kidnapping, we've had situations whereby police were kidnapped, it was vigilante that had to go and rescue them. Whenever there's kidnappings or any, this is the vigilantes that do, the work. But of course, we also have to put system in place, because a lot of people are afraid of the abuse, where governors will now with the kind of control, because governors are actually very powerful.
Quite.
And they are really under the radar. So not like the way people are more focused on a federal government if they're doing something, so they can do a whole lot. But I think it's something we need to start doing now. What we have right now, you see someone from Borno will be posted to maybe like Edo State. He doesn't understand the language, he doesn't understand the culture, he doesn't even understand, what's going there. With more state policing, you'll be able to have people who understand the terrain, who understand the culture. Some of them know who, who is who. You can communicate. You know who are the ones doing, if it's terror, if it's crime, and all of that. So there's a whole lot that we need to do. For me, I'm totally in support of state police, and I think it's time for us to begin to do it, but not just haphazardly. there has to be, real, I don't know what that to call, policies put in place. The laws have to be relocked so that we will not have people abusing them.
I find it laughable when people talk about state police because, and then they say this, they argue about it without considering the welfare of this police. Let's look at the welfare of the present federal police that we have. We always want a lot from policemen, but how much are we giving to the tools and their welfare particularly? You send a policeman from Kano to Lagos on transfer, there is no allowance for him for accommodation. There is no allowance whatsoever for him to be okay. The man is sleeping in the office, is generally looking unkempt and all of that. And then we want to transfer all of this to state police. Is it that things will be better for the police in Nigeria when state police starts? Because I think we are arguing from our own selfish point of view. NSAS, hashtag NSAS touched on this, but they didn't finish with it. And Aisha, you're here. The idea of welfare, it's the people who are well paid that won't take bribe from you.
But guess
if
what?
If they have what it takes to be respectable before people, and they don't have to be asking you for what you carry and where you they go, your inner light, and all of those things. They will live a professional life that is dignified. We have to start from there first. The way people are looking at me.
Because I'm waiting. When you mentioned, I'm waiting. Let me just quickly chip in something. Sorry, please, for me to come in. You see that same police, when the NSAS protesters were demanding for their welfare, it is those same police that will come and attack them. When we are demanding for good governance, it's police they will use. When it's time to rig election, it's the same police they will use to rig election. So at the end of the day, honestly, as I am right now, I don't have sympathy for Nigerian police because whenever people want what is good for the nation and also themselves, they are the ones that are putting
I think that when we speak that way about the police, we're asking for anarchy. Because if you say that the police should stand up for themselves and they should just decide to,
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
You didn't.
No,
I said when others are standing for them, they are the ones going after those people standing for them.
It doesn't matter because that's their job to do. That's their constitutional job.
To kill protesters, to stop them from protesting? No, that's not.
It's their constitutional job to restore order.
And also to protect protesters and allow them the room to do so.
Let us not lose the direction of where we're going. Let me go to where I'm going to, okay? I agree with you, and I also think that it goes back to what we were saying earlier. A lot of times we look at whatever problems we have and we point fingers at people and say, oh, they should do this or they should do that. Clearly, without the right policies for checks and balances, there can be oversteps. Now, even without those checks and balances, there are oversteps already. Even talking about the bullying, there are units in the police that we see in the news that, oh, these people were found and they are notorious for doing this particular thing in this particular area. And it is not local to Nigeria. Like, I don't like when people always say that in saner crimes. There's no saner crimes anywhere. Police are notorious everywhere in the world.
I mean, look
saner
at
crimes have 24/7.
Okay, don't worry.
It's a policeman for
saner crimes
Floyd.
have 24/7 electricity.
Okay. I mean, for me, I'm for state policing. I believe that it is necessary, and I believe that it is long overdue. However, I think that we cannot have talk about state policing in Nigeria without talking about restructuring Nigeria. You cannot have the conversation separately, right? You can't have it one way. You have to have it together because, like Funke rightly said, the issue of how do you fund state police is very, very essential. And then that brings up the question of the revenue sharing formula. So it means that the current revenue sharing formula of the federation has to be changed because you have to fund the state to be able to fund policing at the local level.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Security funds.
So I'm saying that you can't separate it. You have to talk about it within the context of restructure, and I think that's the reason why it has not gone anywhere because we have not done that. And we see the risk around state policing. Take, for instance, what happened to the Kogi state governor, for instance. Now, if there was a state police, that's even more anarchy, because they will use the state police as a way, the Kogi state police as a way to protect what's happening. So we have to have that conversation. And then my last comment really has to do with what Aisha said about vigilante. A lot of the vigilantes are doing fantastic work, but there's also a lot of human rights abuses linked to them.
No checks.
So all these things has to be really, put together so that we have a very cohesive argument.
So, to be honest, in my opinion, I mean, I might not be right, but I think we can actually even have state police before we decentralize the resources. Because if we are serious about security, we are serious about investing in our own states, I don't see any reason why we cannot have state police as part of the civil service in the state, just as it is in the federal government. Once the problem is apparent, solving it will be the next logical step. Funke is next, and she's probing a problem that should have all of us applying our minds on the way forward.
This advocacy is inspired by an article by Cassia Streck of The Guardian UK titled, "Pregnancy is not a disease. Why do so many women die giving birth in Nigeria?" I'd like to reiterate highlights of the writer's sentiments as it relates to that developmental issue called maternal mortality. First, let's examine the statistics that reflect what Nigerians are dealing with in terms of access to healthcare. Firstly, the WHO recommends 1 doctor to 600 people. Nigeria has 1 doctor to about 4,000 to 5,000 people. Secondly, the United Nations recommends 15% of the national budget for health. Nigeria allocated 5% to health in the 2024 budget. Thirdly, doctors continue to emigrate from Nigeria, making the manpower challenge in Nigeria a huge one. Now let's look at the maternal mortality rate in Nigeria. Maternal mortality in Nigeria remains one of the highest globally. A 2023 report from the World Health Organization, WHO, revealed that Nigeria accounted for 12% of global maternal deaths, stillbirths, and neonatal deaths. It is the second largest in the world. In the rural areas, 3 in every 5 women give birth with the assistance of unskilled childbirth attendants. The 2023 UN report on trends in maternal mortality from 2000 to 2020 revealed that a woman in Nigeria has a 1 in 19 lifetime risk of dying during pregnancy, childbirth, or postpartum, whereas in the most developed countries, the lifetime risk is 1 in 4,900. Nigerians have lost how many times? They've lost count of how many times the national grid has collapsed in recent times. Generators, which otherwise were substitutes, have become the main energy supply, but many generators are breaking down. And when they do, in hospitals, the consequences are fatal. If it is during an important surgery, the woman may develop complications in those critical minutes or even die. Now, everyone is flocking to solar, but it is so expensive for hospitals to install. I know the Nigerian government is doing something with the restructuring of discos, but while that is ongoing, what is the proactive step being taken by the Ministry for Health to prevent an escalation in maternal mortality in this dark season of perpetual blackouts?
Yinka, go first.
Okay, I will. I'm very passionate about this particular power situation. And especially when you look at it from the maternal side that you said, so much money is taken outside the country to go and give birth. I recently saw how much you spend in America to give birth, and it's unbelievable. But if we go back to some of the problems we're talking about, and I think it just goes back to us wanting somebody to solve our problem for us. I think we should begin to adopt solving our problems in bits and pieces, like in smaller tranches. Even the grid. There was a time when Indians announced that, I can't remember, sometimes in the 90s, that you could connect if you're generating excess power or something, you could connect it to the grid. So the point is, so much emphasis is laid on what can be done for everybody from a federal level of 200 million people. But what can be done in a community of 700 people that we know everybody? It takes care of of security. It takes care of even power. Look at service estates. There are estates with 100 apartments. It's the same thing. So I think sometimes we overcomplicate what our problem really is in Nigeria because we're not looking at it from a different way. Like there's something that the current president always says. He says a creative mind is a fertile ground for growth or something like that. And I think that's one of the most profound things that anybody can say. You need leaders who can make wealth. You need leaders who can think their way out of problems. And you need those leaders on several levels so that the guys on the upper side can have a clearer head.
And I think most times we keep wanting to subsidize bad governance and enable the bad behavior of government by always putting things back to the people that the people need to. For you to have a creative mind, you must have an educated mind. I know one of the things that we keep forgetting is that most of we that we're here, we're the lucky ones. There are millions of others who never had the right to education, who didn't get any education. And I'm going to tell you something. I have people growing up, I grew up in a place where a man will look at a woman and tell her not to go to hospital. Not because of anything, because he doesn't have the money to pay even transport for her to go to the hospital. And she will stay at home and she will give birth and she will die. Some of them give birth, when the child comes out, there is nothing to wrap the child in. There's a lot of poverty out there. And you know the saddest part of it? I left that place over 26 years ago. It's still the same and even worse. And there's so little that you can do as one person. We keep saying that people should do this, what are we going to do? We've enabled government, we've enabled bad governance, we've allowed things to keep going on. People alone cannot solve the problem. That's what government is supposed to do, to put in policies, enabling policies that people can come and then we'll have a life. So many people, they are not allowed to go. So this death, it's almost normal. And then we have the issue of religion. I'm a Muslim. So part of the things, there are certain people who, when they die, there is a certain category. It's said automatically, it's like they are martyred. Those who die in war, some building has fallen on them. A woman giving birth, and she dies in childbirth is also one of it. So sometimes they use that culture. And what we've had is that religion has been weaponized. The same way illiteracy has been weaponized, the same way poverty has been weaponized. So when all these things are going wrong, instead of people to hold their government accountable, whether local government or whatever it is, because nobody is going to hold me accountable. I'm not the one who is supposed to take care of your welfare. Citizens are not supposed to take care of welfare of citizens. If they do it, it's by choice. The people with the duty to do that is government, and we keep telling government to go away. And so what they do is that they connive between the political rulers and the religious rulers, and they keep telling people, oh, if you're dying there, you're going directly to help. Just like yesterday, I saw, a tweet of a man who lost his wife. Childbirth. It's really not funny. It's beyond this conversation. People are really dying out there. People who were not allowed to go to schools, who don't have anything every day for them, when they're able to put food on their table, that's their own activism. So their minds can be creative.
So in public health, there's one thing we have recognized as the 3 delay model. 1 delay is in decision making to even go to the hospital, which was what she was describing. It can be either cultural, religious, or even poverty. The man doesn't have money and tells his wife, no, stay at home. That's 1 delay. The second delay is, okay, they've decided, let's go to the hospital. But these people are in the hinterlands, they're in the bushes, they are 40 kilometers away from the nearest health facility and all that, Then they manage to cross the rivers and the deserts and get to the hospital. That's the one you are now talking about, no light and all that. That's the 3rd delay in now getting the quality healthcare that, okay, you finally managed to get to the hospital. Talking of power grid, those are the lucky ones that have finally gotten to the hospital. Yet, they are not so lucky because they might not get quality. So, as Aisha said, we have identified this 3D several years ago, over 20, 30 years ago. Why has nothing changed? Funding and systemic failures. what are the 3 main causes of death in these women? Bleeding, which is very easy to stop. Infection or sepsis, we have very cheap antibiotics, and high blood pressure in pregnancy. All preventable causes. Those are the major causes. So you see, why we have to come back to government is, and that's why we're talking decentral. Government is taking too much responsibility, holding all the resources, and that's why we must hold them accountable and say it's government that will do this.
We need accountability. And I think you've identified the fact that government needs to be accountable. The question is, which government? And that is always where I always come to that. Sometimes when we generalize and we speak about government in this kind of very grandiose themes, we miss the message. Because Nigeria is not just an entity, it's an entity with a structure, with laws. So the question is, who is responsible for primary health care? Is it the federal government, or is it the state government, or is it the local government? If the Nigerian law, the way we are structured, under the concurrent or the exclusive list of the legislature, it is the subnational that is responsible for primary health care. But what you find is that when people advocate, because everybody wants to go for the bigger, the big brother. The big brother is the federal government. So everybody's a federal government. Like Funke said, 5% of the budget is attributed to health. But I'm pretty sure that's the federal government budget, and not the state budget that is actually responsible for primary health care at the state level. That actually touches people. So why are we not asking those governors questions? Why are we not putting them on the spot? Why are we not asking them that, what have you done? I checked when I saw Funke's advocates, I checked the number of states in Nigeria that actually have budgets that are up to 15%, and they're only like 4. Kano, Kaduna, Yobe, Abia. Funny enough, 3 of them are in the north. Lagos State, as big as it is, its budget is about 6% health, and it just got increased just last year. So look, we know the problem. You said before, it has been here for many years. But you see, what we've been doing is that we've been dancing around it in the name of agitation. We've not drilled down to the people who are responsible, the people who are taking our taxes. Your payee, my payee, is not going to the federal government. The tax I pay, and I pay a freaking lot of tax, it doesn't go to the federal government. It goes to the state. So why are we not looking at them? Why are we not calling our governors? Why are we not calling our local government chairmen that we don't even know as our councillors, and asking them, how the hell have you used this resource that is in your?
Well, 3 tiers of government. We need funding at the level where women should access basic health. We have no business letting women die at childbirth.
I'm certainly not keeping silent. I'm saying this loud and clear so that those at the back can hear me now. Stop the stigma now.
Stop.
On the 19th of April, the user on X with over 1.9 million followers posted a video of an autistic child damaging TVs. The user asked his followers, in what appeared to be baiting, what they would do in such a situation. Some of the responses were, and I'll quote, "You people don't use belts in this part of the country. He knows what he's doing. I will be Baju Funwere if I was in that store. If I did there, the way this Peking could collect beating from my hand, I swear this spirit where the user go leave her masap. Nonsense." As the parent of an autistic child, I read with shock and sadness this comment suggesting that the boy should be beaten and locked up. To be honest with you, it angered me. What we experience in that video is what some days look like for parents raising autistic children. Sometimes it is in the shape of disruptive behavior like throwing tantrums, shouting, and throwing stuff around. This tends to embarrass the parents and make people uncomfortable around them, and sometimes results in the parents making one of the worst decisions to lock the child away and isolate them from the society. Autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, is a neurological and developmental disability that affects communication, social interaction, and behavior of a child. It is a spectrum disorder, meaning it affects individuals differently and to varying degrees. Some of the interventions that experts have recommended include therapies like what we call the, applied behavioral analysis, ABA, speech and sensory interventions, therapies, among others. It is important to state clearly that autism is a disability and not a disease. I therefore appeal to the general public to relate with autistic children as humans with needs and feelings. Show them love and support their parents too. To the lawmakers, it's time we enact laws that mandate and fund schools to have at least one teacher trained on managing children with neurological disabilities. If you're a school administrator, you need not wait for government. You can start today. And to parents of autistic children who I like to call warriors, you are not a bad parent. Your child is not possessed by demons. Do not live in denial because of what your religious leaders or society will say. Seek professional help for your child. Reach out. There is a community of other warriors willing to help. The month of April is Autism Awareness Month. And the theme for this year is moving from surviving to thriving. Together we can and will make this happen for autistic children and their parents. Inshallah.
A lot of us in Nigeria need a re-education because there is a miseducation. I like your recommendation, and it reminds me that in every school there's a guidance and counseling teacher. And I agree with you, and I join to amplify that we should have teachers, at least one in each school, that will see to the management of disabilities or see to the welfare of children with disabilities in that school. And when we say disabilities, it's not just physical disabilities, there are intellectual disabilities as well. And I think that's where autism
Yes.
lies.
Falls, yeah.
So my appeal is to Nigerians. You know, everything is not grief for anybody. It's not gbas-gbos. We need to have emotional intelligence as well. And when we engage on Twitter, let us think for a second. What if that child was your child? Would you truly say nonsense and beat the weary out of the child? Let's think again.
Even in cases of disease, you know, why stigmatize? For disabilities, why stigmatize? And Funke was using nicer words, miseducation. In some cases, it's total ignorance, okay? So I actually feel sorry for those people that are busy stigmatizing people. Everybody is just one accident away or one event away from a disability. Okay, because you did not have it from birth, does not mean that that's how it's going to end. And sometimes we over-spiritualize things, as you said, it is demon possessed. I mean, people really need to, I think we need to call it what it is so that those that think they are making these kind of comments on X should know that they are displaying ignorance, okay? I mean, if it's maybe people in rural communities with very strong cultures that don't understand certain things, you can start talking of trying to re-educate and reorient them. But at some level, we have to call it what it is, which is ignorance. And we discussed on this show some time ago, lack of empathy, which Aisha was talking about. So these are all the issues, and I think we need to do more for autistic children. We need to do more for persons living with disabilities. We need to do more for persons living with chronic diseases.
We are religious, but we are godless.
We're religious but godless.
So we all the this thing of religion we love to do. We are not humans. like, you know, have very expensive empathy. So people don't care. You see a child in that way. I have a son who is dyslexic. And I remember when he was in primary 4, his teacher asked me, how many children do I have? And I said 2. And she said, don't have any more. You don't have the emotions. I know how many times I've cried. He's 25. Sometimes it seems as if I have a 15-year-old in certain areas. When he was 16 and they checked him, there was a place where his capacity was that of a 4-year-old. And so you imagine what that does to you. Even your relationship with your spouse, sometimes you're like, it strains things, having a child. And you see, I remember when you talk about that religion, I remember I had a pastor as a neighbor. One time he said to me, oh, you know, I think it's something in the Bible where it's about the first son or something. I'm like, no, my son is dyslexic, it's okay. And I've had people say, aren't you ashamed? Why should I be ashamed of my son? And I'm proud that I'm his mother. My son is an amazing human being. He might not be a first class, whatever. He might not be that person that will go out there and, you know, achieve these big things. But he's a human being, and it's a good one. And I keep saying the same way that people give A's and B's and whatever for students who are doing so well, they should also give it for humanity. At the age of 13, we had to make the most painful decision and send him to England to a school for children with learning disability. Today he has a degree. If we had left him in Nigeria, he would never have been able to. And so sometimes when I'm speaking, I'm thinking of those children who also have this disability, whose parents don't have the means to do it. And in this country, you see the way people want to shame you. So I will never, ever be ashamed of my child. I'm proud of him, and I tell him always, own your dyslexia, own who you are, stand your ground, and nobody will ever make you less than human. And to every parent out there with a child with a disability, I say to you, we are privileged to have our children, and our children are enough. We do not need a society to validate our children. We do not need anyone giving them a space, because God has already given them a space in this world. And we must stand for them. We must know that no matter what, our children will have us, and we will love them. And then we know that they came to this world to make the world a better place.
Like he said, it's a spectrum. And if you understand what the spectrum means, we're all operating on several spectrums as well. And because of the way the world is, the maybe Western education or the things that we agree to be right or wrong, we're all marked on the same exam. When we're not trying to be the same. We're not all trying to be doctors, but we're all marked to be doctors. You know, you might have a child who is not too quick to, you know, speak up or this, but you might have some of the most incredible imagination you can ever think about. And think of all of the inventors in this world, a lot of them fall within that spectrum. In fact, for you to do something exceptional, for you to be exceptional, you really, really, really have to be on some sort of spectrum. It won't work. You know, it won't work. So the other thing I wanted to say is about Twitter itself and generally platforms for public discourse. It is filled with 3% of the noisiest.
Thank you, guys. I mean, you made me very emotional. And it's a very emotional topic. And I think we've touched on all the bases. I want to speak to the platform owners. Like I said, that guy that posted the video has 1.9 million followers.
I don't even know if put on Twitter. I can't deal.
The point, you know, I looked at it and I felt how irresponsible he was. You know, he posted the video and he invited people to make comments. He was smart enough to be able to say, he or she, I don't know, you know, to be able to say, this is an autistic child. but then you say, you now invite people, bait them. I think we need to be more responsible. Yeah. I think if you're out there, if you are a platform owner, I don't care whatever platform, whatever social media, whatever mainstream media, whatever it is, if you have a platform, you need to be responsible of how that platform is used to push stigma. There are loads of parents today who can afford the health care for children of special needs. My children are privileged because I could afford it. You know, and even because I could afford it, it almost bankrupted us in the process, but I could still afford it. Majority of parents can't afford it. And that's why, you know, they're locking these children away and they're denying them. And so we need funding, we need awareness, and we need to be able to stop the stigma now. It begins with speaking out and then taking a stand. In whatever way we can, it starts right here at the table. Glad you could join us. We'll be here, same time, next week, with fresh topics. Till then, goodbye from all of us.
Bye.
Bye.